Everybody, this is Abu Mesaros, aka BundesPL, and I want to take a look at the Bosz-wagon, the Peter Bosz hire in Leverkusen, as exhibited in his first match in the Bundesliga against Borussia Mönchengladbach, one of the better teams in the league, and wanted to take a look at how his sort of Guardiola, Ajax, Barcelona-inspired positional play and his added aggressive, intensive counter-pressing would look in a side that is a second chance for him over what happened in Dortmund. So you saw some reports out of training camp that he is using all of his attackers basically on the pitch at the same time with a very aggressive sort of 4-1-2-2-1, where Charles Aranguiz is playing single pivot and Kai Havertz and Julian Brandt are playing as number 8 with the inverted wingers Karim Bellarabi and Leon Bailey. Looking at the positional play in action here, you can see a perfectly drawn up, the symmetry is amazing. You have two defenders, center backs back there with Ta and Bender. The fullbacks, Bender and Lars Bender, that is, and Wendell are really high up, and Aranguiz is playing by himself. And then you've got the half spaces dominated by Havertz and Julian Brandt. So right away, I mean, this was very evident in the match, and especially the first 25 minutes or so, that they've just pushed Gladbach back with their possession play, with the short flat passes, and then very aggressive high counter pressing by the fullbacks Wendell and Lars Bender, and you had the wingers Bailey and Bellarabi playing inverted roles. So. And they would press their fullbacks upon losing possession. So taking a look at it, just 6 minutes later, I actually just copy pasted the previous slides cut out of the circuit of the positional play, and it's a perfect match again. So clearly this means that these are well drilled in the short training camp that they had over the winter, and you've got it set up here again, and Gladbach kind of struggled to play through it, and here I'm going to take a look at how Julian Brandt is being utilized here. He had an excellent start to the match here, where center backs were trying to find him, particularly since he was on the left half space. It was Sven Bender's job to find him, and the lack of pressure on the ball by Gladbach left the center backs to make plays, and in this occasion the man marking wasn't yet fully in effect. So you could see that Kai Havertz is being covered by Denis Zakaria, but Jonas Hoffmann is behind Tobias Strobel. Jonas Hoffmann is kind of technically on the right side, so he probably should be the one who going with Brandt, and that's what they will adjust to later, because Strobel doesn't really have the ability to stick with Julian Brandt, who was making use of a lot of these spaces afforded to him by the wide play of Wendell all the way out there, and then also Bellarabi. So he was actually creating a few chances early on, and unfortunately it didn't really attest to all that much in terms of the finishing, but Brandt was very active in the first 15 minutes. So here are some of the key attacking concepts for Peter Bosz's side, using the number 6 to aid the build-up. So Charles Aranguiz occasionally in the first half would drop back to help out here, to make some of those plays. When Ta and Bender struggled with that, I mean, neither of them are known for their passing. That's going to be a recurring theme throughout this match, and it left with the dropping back of Havertz and Brandt in the half spaces. They're going to be available for passes, and that will also open up maybe some of the passing lanes for either the wingers coming in. You can see Leon Bailey moving in from the right wing, or you could see the fullbacks going up really high. Wendell and Bender are both excellent at counter-pressing as well, should they lose the ball. So that will also prevent the counters that Gladbach wanted to run. And that was very successful for the first 15-20 minutes or so. And you could see Gladbach defending very, very deep, and we'll get to them in their sort of 4-5-1. Here's an example again of what Leverkusen tried to do, and this was probably one where Gladbach, his coverage was more adjusted. You can see the man marking on Brandt by Zakaria. You could see Aranguiz, playing very, much higher now and being covered by the other number 6 Strobel, and then you got down here you got Havertz and Jonas Hoffmann as well as pairs. So when they played this man coverage, Gladbach did, then that would really leave the Leverkusen center backs 2v1, and Stindl is the one who's responsible for sort of not necessarily pressing them, but sort of just bothering the Leverkusen central defenders. And unfortunately, neither Sven Bender or Jonathan Tah were able to make enough plays. So here you can see an example of where Bender with the ball could actually dribble into that space, and or even maybe a little bit go on his left foot. And I think this is where having a left-footed center back would be quite useful. Although I think Alexander Dragovic is not someone Bosz would want to use because of his extreme lack of speed, but he would certainly be an option with his left-footed playmaking. But so Bender could actually dribble into that space that he's going to eventually just pass the ball to Julian Brandt, which is just going to be the pressing trap that Gladbach set up. So that's not really what they want to do there. And it would happen again with Jonathan Tah later on. And here's another example here. Gladbach have adjusted to a 4-3-3-ish defense where they pushed their wingers Thorgan Hazard and Plea towards the middle to block the central axis here because of the passes that would keep coming to Brandt and then Havertz early on. So another way to counteract that would have been to make a diagonal switch by Tah, and you can see Wendell at the top of the screen is just wide open, but Tah is not really quick enough or accurate enough with his passing to consistently make these passes. So that was another one where they struggle with. And then you could see here another struggle by Sven Bender when he gets a little bit pressured. This was probably again designed by Leverkusen, and this was apparent at Dortmund as well. If your center backs get pressured, they would typically just try to play the ball back to Lukas Radetzky, or in Dortmund it was Roman Bürki. But so when Gladbach started to adjust to this man-oriented high press-ish, that would have required some playmaking. And here you can see sort of a Mats Hummels outside of the boot pass that Sven could have found his twin brother Lars had, but that never really materialized. So a couple of missed opportunities here, and you could see Radetzky getting more involved. And once Gladbach go into higher press, Leverkusen actually did pretty good job with that, because they were able to drop back their eights, Julian Brandt. And then he would either play make through Aranguiz, or they would switch it out to Havertz on the other side. So that was actually a good way of maybe outplaying the press there. So turning on to the second phase, away from possession but going up to the pressing scheme, that's another huge part of Peter Bosz's game. That actually worked really well in the first half. Basically, a big underpinning of this is thanks to the excellent positional play. You really only need to make short sprints to disturb the opponent and force them into turnovers or even just long balls. So here's an example from the 9th minute where basically Elvedi is going to make a flat pass, and that will trigger Kevin Folland that he needs to press Ginter, and then they force it all the way back to Jan Sommer, and then everybody moves forward. You could see Aranguiz man marking Strobel, who is the playmaker for Gladbach, and then we'll just end up with the Jan Sommer long ball, and Kai Havertz does a pretty nice job of covering up the holes here between Zakaria and Wendt. So neither of them are an option. So again, it's just short sprints, and we'll get on to the number of sprints that they had to make later on. But basically, this was a very effective way for Leverkusen to win the ball back, and then they could just basically recycle their attack and then go from there. Here's the long ball, and then Bender is going to win it, and then you got Havertz is already turned, and he's going to beat Zakaria there. So that was a nice way for Leverkusen to get the ball back, and that really led them to dominate the first 20-30 minutes of the match until Gladbach made some adjustments. And before we get into that, I want to focus on a little bit more of the overall positives from this game. The team adapting to the philosophy of Peter Bosz very quickly. The sprinting intensity, so 266 is the number of sprints that they made, and you can see Peter Bosz saying after the game that he's never experienced anything like that in Germany or in Holland ever. So very happy with that. that allows them to regain the ball, and that also allows that, obviously, as Jurgen Klopp said about the playmaking ability of gegenpressing being the best playmaker, they can get a number of chances, and they actually, excelled in the counterpressing, particularly because of Aranguiz pushing up, and particularly because of Lars Bender and Wendell pushing up. And they got a volume of chances. Ended up with 22 shots to just holding Gladbach to 7, and getting 10 shots to on target. And unfortunately, Jan Sommer made 10 saves, but the quality of chances left a little bit to be desired, and I'll get back into that towards the end of the video. But dominated the attacking third. Fullback play was improved, and you can see some of their attacking third passes, and you can see the chances created by Julian Brandt here. So there wasn't, everything was not perfect. You definitely could see some room for improvement here for Leverkusen. As I mentioned, the center backs build up and passing range is limited in decision making. And I think the other key part was controlling the counterattacks, and that was something that Gladbach were able to adjust to once they kind of withstood the initial barrage. Particularly the way they did it is through Nico Elvedi taking those very same chances that Bender and Tah would not take with his dribbling and diagonal passes through the middle. And you could see an example here of Elvedi, who would basically just get past Folland, and you could see how Aranguiz is all the way up on Strobel. That means nobody's covering the middle there, because Havertz and Brandt needs to stay with their 8, the Zakaria and Hoffmann. So Stindl is wide open, and he will take a couple cracks at it and actually miscontrol it, or not make the right turn, or not have the spatial awareness first time. But eventually this will turn into some more chances. You can see an example of this in the 18th minute, where Gladbach are all the way pressed into their own line, but they get out of this thanks to Aranguiz's difficulties. I mean, he had to cover so much space, and pressing all the way up, and he missed a few tackles. You can see he was 1-on-4, and when he would also maybe get clearances and lose the ball, that allowed Gladbach some other counter-attacking opportunities. So here's one where he gets to that clearance, but his header is not to his teammate, but to Jonas Hoffmann. And then the counter is on for Stindl and Zakaria, and eventually getting to Zakaria running at the defense. And although he's not going to make a good decision, but that would be another avenue. And you'll see another example of Elvedi playmaking in the 26th minute, which eventually will be kind of a precursor or foreshadowing of the first goal. Again, an example of exploiting that space left by Aranguiz, who actually should probably be protecting that space, seeing how far he is from Strobel. So and Havertz is looking at Zakaria. So Stindl is again open. He recognized that there is a ton of space left by Aranguiz in front of the center backs, and Elvedi has the requisite passing ability and range to execute those passes. So that was a way for Gladbach to attack, and you saw that on their goal, basically calling it the third time is the charm, where Elvedi is a little bit further forward this time. Once again, breaks the midfield pass with a great laser diagonal ball. Havertz can't react. Aranguiz can't close it down, and it's just bam, bam, bam. Stindl, Hoffmann, Plea, 1-0, and really that was the only open play big chance for Gladbach in the match, aside from a set piece that Elvedi had where they just lost him, but very little creation. So a couple of the negatives, you can see the crosses were an area of concern for Bosz, because Julian Brandt was 3 of 10, Bailey was 1 of 10, and Bellarabi was 2 of 8. So and Bailey particularly struggled by overhitting some of his left-footed ones and underhitting the right-footed chips in an inverted winger role, and was not, he was involved in the attacking third, but a lot of times he would get the ball in advantageous positions from Havertz or Brandt and could not really figure out what the right solution is. So overall, here's the takeaway, a lot of high volume, but low quality chances. So the XG was 1.24, and really you can see the small dots on the right of the screen. Only Bellarabi's shot in the 67th minute, which would end up hitting the post, was 24% chance, and all the other ones were under 12%. So the chance quality was very low. Expected goals per shot was just 0.05, so 5%. The season average for Leverkusen is double that. So clearly that's something they need to work on. But overall, Peter Bosz has a lot of trust in his squad, and said he was happy. He said that, the players showed that they can do this, and he's got the faith. So that's pretty much been the introduction to how Peter Bosz's philosophy at Leverkusen in this first game against Mönchengladbach played out. And I'm very, very excited to see how the next phase comes out, particularly with the difficult next couple of matches against Wolfsburg and then Bayern coming up. So stay tuned for more analysis. This is Abu Mesarosh, aka BundesPL, signing out.